Hey, everybody, and welcome to my latest vlog. My name is Jessica Dwyer. I am the VIP entertainment reporter for Zenny62 Media, and I'm here to talk the Week in Geek. As everyone knows, we're still sort of in the holding pattern of, is there going to be another movie season? Everything's kind of been moved. So there's not a lot of movie news right now other than Tenet. Tenet is, as far as we know, coming out. It is going to be released. It is going to be worldwide on movie screens across the world before it comes to the States. So it's going to be a little difficult for everybody to stay unspoiled. It's going to start releasing across the world internationally in August, and then on September 3rd, it will be released here in the States. So the challenge for everybody that wants to see this movie is going to be ignoring spoilers and not being spoiled for it. So just be aware, in August, you're going to want to avoid anything to do with this movie because it will be spoiled for you. I have no doubt. And, you know, we can wait. The big news, you know, the goal and the hope is that by September, it won't be moved again. So here's hoping that we get Tenet. And if you couldn't tell from the trailer, if you couldn't tell by the name, this isn't really a spoiler, but Nolan's movie is about an agency that uses time travel, short bits of time travel, to solve problems, solve crime, stop people. Even the word Tenet is the same. It's the same forwards and backwards. So just be aware. September, we're going to get Tenet as of right now. As of right now, that's the key. If everything goes right, that's going to be the release date for the States. Everybody else who has been smart, New Zealand, all these other countries that have gotten their numbers down when it comes to the plague, are getting it first. And they've earned it. What can you say? They've earned the movie. So let's talk about something else that hasn't been released and was supposed to be and isn't. And that is The Winds of Winter, which is the new George R.R. Martin book that was supposed to be the next in the Songs of Ice and Fire trilogy. So those books, this book in particular, has been in the works for a very long time. And people were expecting this to be done. Originally, George R.R. Martin had said that this book would be finished and delivered by July 29th. Well, that's today. And he had said this back in 2019. But as of right now, George R.R. Martin has not delivered. And it's even more pathetic if you think about it, since no one's been able to leave. He is a high risk. He's an older guy. And he's had all this time in quarantine to get it done. And he's still not done with it. So he missed that deadline he gave everyone, so I guess we're waiting still for the true ending to Game of Thrones. But who knows when that's going to happen, if we'll get that. I'm hoping it comes out. I'd love to have the actual legitimate, real, not Daenerys going crazy cuckoo pants ape shit at the drop of a hat ending that we got. I would rather have the true and real ending for it. So anyway, that was the Game of Thrones news that we had today, which is really, there is no news. There's been no release of the book. So the other thing that we found out today and was released online, and this is something I wasn't expecting, is for those of you who watch and know of the work of Ryan Murphy and American Horror Story, he's done a ton of stuff, but everybody knows him for American Horror Story. But he has a new series coming to Netflix that I wasn't aware of, or I forgot about it, which is called Ratchet. And Ratchet is the prequel of all things to Once One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the classic Jack Nicholson um, film, and the original, was a book first. But this is all about Nurse Ratchet and her life before the events in the book. And she's a nurse in that was played by Louise Fletcher. And this series actually stars Sarah Paulson, who works with Ryan Murphy all the time, is usually the lead actress in everything that he does. And she is playing Ratchet in this, and it looks interesting. It looks a lot dark. It looks very dark. And here's the synopsis for you. From Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan, Ratchet is a suspenseful drama series that tells the origin story of asylum nurse Mildred Ratchet. In 1947, Mildred arrives in Northern California to seek employment at a leading psychiatric hospital where new and unsettling experiments have begun on the human mind. Now, there's your horror angle on this, for sure. Ryan Murphy does not skimp when it comes to dark subject matter in his shows. On a clandestine mission, Mildred presents herself as the perfect image of what a dedicated nurse should be, but the wheels are always turning, and as she begins to infiltrate the mental health care system and those within it, Mildred's stylish exterior belies a growing darkness that has been long smoldering within, revealing that true monsters are made, not born. And that sounds very interesting. The one thing I like about this is that Ryan Murphy has a very great skill in putting female leads and making he's very equal opportunity with who his villains are. And in most of his series and shows, he has no problem with women being the evil and bad guy in those shows. It's really great to see. And if you watch most of American Horror Story, nearly every season has a female villain in it. And he writes them really well. He writes them very complex. He writes them very interestingly. And he always gets good actors and actresses for these shows, and specifically for these roles like this. So I was pleasantly surprised to see this coming out. So I was very, very excited to see this. Hi, Zinni. I just decided to do YouTube because I just wanted to. It was easy. Anyway, so fantastic looking show. Looks great. Very excited to see what he does with it. Sounds very interesting, and it sounds like it's going to be a really interesting tale to see, because this happens. Even if she didn't go into the profession with the best of intentions, what happens to a lot of medical professionals and with a lot of nurses and doctors, but I've witnessed this personally, is that you end up going into these professions with the best of intentions, and through the course of seeing what happens, dealing with people, dealing with patients, dealing with doctors, and just the healthcare system in general, you find that you lose a bit of your heart and soul as you go along, eventually losing most of it, because you have to turn off your humanity in a lot of these situations. And because if you don't, you'll lose your effing mind. But also, it just, you can't, eventually it gets to the point where you can't turn it back on. And for some people, you just can't turn back that humanity on. Or you can either be one or the other. You can be the robot type of, I have to deal with everything. I'm going to have to deal with this, and not see people as people just to get through it. Or you lose your mind. especially if it's something to do with someone that you love, someone you care about that's there. And I see this story being something to talk about, that's going to talk about that when it comes to being a nurse or a doctor, that you eventually lose that side of your humanity, especially back then. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was not far from the truth of institution life and how people were treated. So I'm really stoked to see what Murphy does with this. He already showed in American Horror Story that he can do really fantastic things with that sort of environment. So I'm really interested to see what he does with this. And Sarah Paulson is a fantastic actress. So I'm really stoked for that. So that's really some of the biggest news I have right now for you guys. If you have any questions or anything for me, feel free to shoot them over in the chat. I see there's a few of you watching live, so if you have any questions, feel free. Upcoming, I am really excited because I just landed an interview with Matt Ruff, who is the writer of this, which is backwards on screen, but it says Lovecraft Country. So I will be interviewing the gentleman who wrote the book that is now going to be the HBO series next week. And I will be sharing that with you. I'm very excited about that. I love the book. The book is fantastic. And the series, as you know, they showed the new trailer for that. It starts in 2 weeks on HBO and HBO Max. Looks amazing. Just great actors, super storyline. There's a lot of great stuff that's going to be in this. And I'm very stoked because, as I've spoken about before, the irony of this and the reason this is such a perfect vehicle for the story that they're talking about racial tension, racial issues in Jim Crow America back in the 40s and 50s, is because, H.P. Lovecraft was a product of his time and was a very much a racist. Doesn't take away from the fact that he made some amazing books and amazing stories, but he was a product of his generation and wrote some fairly nasty things. And what's great about Lovecraft Country is Lovecraft Country doesn't shy away from that at all. Hi, Ozymandias 714. How are you? Lovecraft Country doesn't turn away from that at all. In fact, it talks about that within the first couple of chapters of the book about Lovecraft and what he wrote and how the protagonist in this, Atticus, who loves books, loves the stories, loves the Lovecraft stories specifically, had to come to terms with that and dealt with it and was able to still love the stories, even though he didn't like what the man was like that did them. So it's a great book, and I'm really excited for the show. And that will be airing starting in 2 weeks on HBO. The other thing I wanted to let you guys know about is that I just posted a review of a release that was done by Scream and Shout Factory, and this is on Fangirl Magazine if you want to go look at fangirlmag.com. It is for a DVD release. It came out a little over a month ago. I'm a little behind on stuff, but this was for Universal Horror, the Universal Horror Collection. Right there, you can see the right there. The Universal Horror Collection by number 5, volume 5 by Shout and Scream Factory. And what Shout and Scream Factory are doing with these releases are they are combining 4 movies from the classic 40s, 50s era of Universal's lesser known horror titles and are compiling them together on Blu-ray, including lots of cool extras, lots of really great commentary tracks. One of these releases has one of the coolest Edgar Allan Poe documentaries I've ever seen. This one was volume 5 though. And what was great about this one and what really impressed me and threw me, because I thought I knew a lot about horror films and this surprised me. In this collection, 3 of the 4 films are a trilogy of movies that were done with a female monster lead in them. They're part of the Man in the Suit guerrilla films that Universal released. And the first one on here is called The Monster and the Girl, which is one of those Man in Suit movies where almost all of these have to do with a human brain being put into the body of a gorilla. It was a thing. Blame King Kong, blame Mighty Joe Young. That was the whole thing. Gorillas were a big deal. But what I really found fascinating about these were, as I said, starting with Captive Wild Woman and the Jungle Woman and then Jungle Captive, they were a female character monster that had her own series of films back in the 40s. So this, I think, was probably one of the first representations of something like that ever. And she was the Jungle Girl. Her name was Paula Dupree. They gave her a real name, but she was the Gorilla Woman or Gorilla Girl in these movies. And her character kind of became sort of like a Larry Talbot type, the Wolfman, character from those films. Because she was a gorilla who was given human DNA to somehow make her human. Science was sort of a word that was it in these movies. It wasn't real science, but it was science. And it made her turn from a woman from a gorilla into a beautiful woman. And she ended up becoming very possessive, very jealous. She'd kill guys, kill women, had no problem murdering people. She was a monster. Eventually, she becomes some hybrid-looking creature that's very much reminiscent of the Wolfman makeup, but it's a gorilla. And then in the third film, you see more of that. But I just was floored because I hadn't realized this was really a thing. This was a series of films with a female villain monster as the lead, and she was the same character through the three films, played by the same actress for two of them, and that's a huge deal. I mean, I'm surprised we don't hear more about this. Now, granted, these weren't the A films by Universal Horror that were released back then, like Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. These were their B films, but still, that's pretty damn cool that you had that back then. And you'd be hard-pressed to find that today. There are some, but not many. And this specifically, having the monster be a woman and be the lead character, the lead throughout, is pretty freaking cool. So I would strongly suggest, if you're a horror fan or a film fan or old school Hollywood fan at all, go find the Universal Horror Collection Volume 5 on Scream and Shout Factory's website. Get it. Get all of them. They're fantastic sets. They're doing really great work with these. The first volume is Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, and the 4 films they did together that were not a Dracula and Frankenstein. They were like the Raven and the Black Cat are 2 of them, and they are some of the most beautifully shot, cool Universal films. And with 2 of the legends, the biggest legends of horror ever. So go check those out. With that, guys, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this Week in Geek. I'll do more of these as we go along. Again, if there's stuff that you want me to talk about specific that you'd like to know about, please comment below. Let us know. And with that, I will be back in a few days with another video for you. So thanks, guys. I will see you soon. Stay safe. Spread the word, not the virus. Bye.